Have you ever wondered what happens to the birds in your yard after the sun goes down? Not where they fly. Not which tree they choose. I mean, what actually happens to them? Because if you're like most people, you probably see them all day long. They're at your feeder. They're hopping across your lawn. They're calling from the fence. Sometimes they seem so familiar that they almost feel like part of the family. Then evening arrives. The sky darkens. And suddenly they're gone. It's easy to assume their day simply ends where yours does. That they find a branch, close their eyes and wait for morning. But that isn't what happens at all. In fact, some of the most important moments in a bird's life happen when you can no longer see them. While your house is quiet and your yard appears empty, your birds are making decisions that can determine whether they survive until sunrise. They're choosing sleeping spots, avoiding predators, conserving energy, communicating with flock members, and navigating a nighttime world that most backyard bird lovers never witness. And here's what makes this even more fascinating. Many of the birds visiting your feeder every day may know your yard better than you do. They remember safe places. They remember danger. They remember routines. Some can even recognize individual humans. Think about that for a moment. The little chickadee or sparrow you've watched all summer may be living an entire hidden life just a few feet away from your window every single night. A life you've never seen. And once you understand what they're doing after dark, you'll never look at your backyard the same way again. So before you leave, subscribe, because what you're about to learn will completely change the way you see the birds in your yard. We're going to uncover where they sleep, how they survive cold nights, why some birds gather together after sunset, and the surprising reason your yard may be far more important to them than you ever realized. Because the story of your birds doesn't end when daylight fades. In many ways, that's exactly when the hidden story begins. Where your birds really sleep. The first mystery most people have is surprisingly simple. Where do your birds actually sleep? If you've ever watched a feeder near sunset, you've probably noticed something strange. The steady stream of visitors begins to slow down. The chickadees disappear. The finches stop arriving. The sparrows seem to vanish one by one. It's almost as if the entire neighborhood quietly empties itself. But here's where it gets interesting. Most backyard birds don't sleep in exposed places where you can easily see them. Instead, they spend the last part of the day searching for protected locations that offer safety from predators, wind, and changing temperatures. A dense evergreen tree might look ordinary to you. A thick shrub beside your fence may seem unimportant. To a bird, those places can mean survival. Research has shown that many small songbirds choose roosting spots that reduce heat loss and provide concealment from nighttime hunters like owls, raccoons, and outdoor cats. They often return to the same safe locations night after night, creating familiar sleeping territories they know and trust. Now imagine this. A chickadee that spent the afternoon at your feeder may travel only a short distance before settling into a hidden pocket of branches. Just a few yards away from where you last saw it, it tucks its head beneath its feathers and remains almost completely motionless until morning. The surprising thing is that you can walk past that very tree and never realize a living creature is sleeping inside. And that changes the way you see your yard. What appears empty after sunset isn't empty at all. It's filled with quiet lives hidden in plain sight. The birds you've watched throughout the day haven't disappeared. They're still there, resting in places they've carefully selected through experience, instinct, and memory. When you think about it that way, your backyard stops feeling like a place birds simply visit. It becomes part of their home. How your birds survive the coldest hours of the night. If you've ever stepped outside before sunrise on a cold morning, you've felt how harsh those hours can be. The air is colder. Everything feels still. Even your breath seems heavier. Now think about the smallest bird that visits your feeder. A chickadee weighs less than an ounce. A goldfinch isn't much bigger. And yet somehow these tiny creatures survive nights that would seem impossible for an animal their size. Here's the fascinating part. For many backyard birds, nighttime is actually the most physically demanding part of the day. During daylight hours, they're constantly eating. Every seed, insect, or berry they find helps build energy reserves. But once darkness arrives, feeding stops completely. From that moment until sunrise, They're living entirely on stored energy. To make that possible, birds use remarkable strategies. Many fluff their feathers dramatically before sleeping. Those feathers trap pockets of air that act like insulation, helping retain body heat. Some species can even lower their body temperature slightly during the night, reducing the amount of energy they burn while resting. Stay with me here. That bird you watched casually pecking at sunflower seeds this afternoon wasn't just eating because it was hungry. It was preparing for the night ahead. Every visit to your feeder may be helping it build the reserves needed to survive the coldest hours before dawn. And that gives a completely different meaning to a simple backyard observation. What looks like an ordinary feeding routine is actually part of a daily survival strategy that has evolved over millions of years. The next time you see a bird gathering food late in the afternoon, you'll know something most people don't. It isn't just planning for tomorrow. It's preparing to make it through tonight. And hidden inside that tiny body is a level of resilience that's easy to overlook until you realize what it faces every single evening. The secret nighttime gatherings most people never notice. One of the biggest surprises in the bird world is that some birds don't spend the night alone. In fact, as evening approaches, certain species begin doing something that can look almost ordinary from a distance but has an extraordinary purpose. They gather. If you've ever noticed a group of small birds settling into the same tree near sunset, you may have assumed it was a coincidence. It usually isn't. For many species, communal roosting is a powerful survival strategy. As daylight fades, birds may leave feeding areas and travel toward shared roost sites where dozens, sometimes even hundreds, of individuals spend the night together. The exact reasons vary by species, but the benefits are clear. More eyes help detect danger before darkness fully arrives. Large groups can reduce the risk of any one bird becoming a predator's target. In colder conditions, some species even benefit from the warmth created by staying close to one another. Think about that for a moment. The birds visiting your yard during the day may belong to a much larger nighttime community that you never see. A sparrow feeding alone beneath your feeder might spend the night surrounded by dozens of others hidden deep within a thicket. A blackbird crossing your lawn may later join a gathering that stretches across an entire stand of trees. What most people don't realize is that these birds are constantly balancing independence with connection. They search for food on their own. They defend space when necessary. Yet when darkness arrives, many choose safety in numbers. And there's something strangely familiar about that. Because when conditions become uncertain, humans often do the same thing. We seek places that feel safe. We stay close to people we trust. We find comfort in community. Your birds are no different. Behind the fluttering wings and quick movements is a social world unfolding every evening. A hidden network of relationships, routines, and shared survival that continues long after you've stopped watching. And that's only part of the story. Why your birds remember safe places after dark. Have you ever noticed how certain birds seem to appear in the same parts of your yard day after day? The same fence post, the same shrub, the same corner of the garden. At first glance, it might seem random, but it often isn't. Many backyard birds possess remarkable spatial memory. They constantly build mental maps of the places around them, where food can be found, where predators have appeared, and most importantly, where safety exists. And that memory becomes especially important at night. As darkness approaches, birds don't usually begin searching for a sleeping place from scratch. Instead, many return to locations that have proven reliable in the past. Safe roosts become valuable resources, remembered and revisited over time. Now imagine experiencing your yard from a bird's perspective. Every tree has a history. Every hedge carries information. Every branch represents either risk or security. The dense cedar near your fence may be remembered as a place that protected a bird during a winter storm. The thick shrub beside your porch may have sheltered another from a hunting owl months earlier. Those experiences matter. What most people don't realize is that birds learn from success. When a location helps them survive the night, it becomes part of their mental map of the world. And here's the emotional part. Your yard may exist inside those maps. Not as an address, of course, but as a collection of trusted places. A reliable feeder. A safe tree. A sheltered corner. To you, it's just your backyard. To a bird, it may be a landscape filled with memories accumulated over weeks, months, or even years. Let that sink in for a second. The birds you recognize may also recognize parts of the environment you've created for them, which means your yard isn't simply a stop along their journey. For some of your birds, it's a place they have learned to trust when the world goes dark. The dangers your birds face while you sleep. When you switch off the lights and head to bed, your birds enter the most vulnerable part of their day, because night may look peaceful from your window. For a small bird, it rarely is. During daylight, birds have one major advantage. They can see danger coming. They can spot a hawk overhead, notice movement in the grass, or react quickly when something feels wrong. Darkness changes everything. Vision becomes limited. Escape routes are harder to judge. A single mistake can be fatal. That's why choosing the right roosting spot is so important. An exposed branch may offer a good view during the day, but at night it can leave a bird vulnerable to owls. A poorly sheltered location may expose it to wind, rain, or sudden temperature drops that drain precious energy reserves before morning arrives. And predators know exactly where to look. Owls patrol silently through the darkness. Raccoons climb through trees. Snakes in some regions search for resting birds. Even outdoor cats can become highly effective nighttime hunters. The surprising thing is that birds have evolved countless ways to reduce these risks. Many choose dense vegetation where predators struggle to reach them. Others position themselves near the trunk of a tree rather than out on exposed branches. Some remain almost perfectly still for hours, relying on camouflage and silence to avoid detection. Now think about that for a moment. The bird that seemed carefree at your feeder this afternoon is spending every night making decisions that directly affect its survival. And most mornings, when you see it return, you're witnessing something easy to overlook. A success story. It survived another night. Another stretch of darkness. Another series of risks hidden from human eyes. That's one reason backyard birds can inspire such admiration. Their lives may appear simple from a distance, but every sunrise represents another challenge overcome. And as remarkable as that is, the most surprising part of the story still lies ahead. The emotional reveal. Your yard is part of their hidden world. By now, you know that your birds don't simply disappear when the sun goes down. They retreat into a world that most people never see. A world of hidden shelters, remembered safe places, social gatherings, and quiet acts of survival. But here's the realization that changes everything. The story isn't really about what birds do at night. It's about your connection to that unseen world. Think about the birds that visit your yard every day. You might recognize a familiar cardinal perched on the same branch. You may notice the chickadees arriving before the others. Perhaps you've watched a pair of finches return season after season. Most people see those moments as brief encounters. But the birds experience something very different. To them, your yard isn't a photograph frozen in time. It's part of a living landscape they navigate every single day. They know where the food is. They know where shelter exists. They know which places feel safe and which do not. And when darkness arrives, those memories matter. The feeder you refill in the morning may help a bird build enough energy to survive a freezing night. The shrub you almost removed might become a protected sleeping place. The tree outside your window could shelter dozens of birds you never even realize are there. What most people don't realize is that conservation doesn't always begin in vast wilderness areas. Sometimes it begins in ordinary backyards. Sometimes it begins with a single tree, a single feeder, a single source of fresh water. Now imagine this. While you're asleep tonight, somewhere in your yard a small bird may be tucked safely into a hidden pocket of branches. The world around it is dark. Predators are moving. Temperatures are falling. Yet it remains there because experience has taught it that this place is safe. Your place. Let that sink in for a second. You may never witness that moment. You'll never hear it. You'll never see it happen. But it happens anyway. And perhaps that's what makes backyard birds so fascinating. Not because they're rare. Not because they're exotic. But because extraordinary lives are unfolding all around you, every single day and every single night. hidden just beyond the edge of your attention. The birds in your yard are living stories. And once you realize that, you'll never look at them the same way again. The next time the sun begins to set and the birds slowly disappear from your feeder, you'll know something most people don't. They aren't simply leaving. They're returning to a hidden nighttime world filled with careful choices, remembered safe places, quiet communities, and remarkable acts of survival. Every bird in your yard carries on a life far more complex than it appears from a quick glance through a window. The chickadee gathering one last seed. The sparrow vanishing into a hedge. The cardinal slipping into a dense evergreen. Each one is beginning a chapter of its day that you'll rarely get to witness. And maybe that's part of the magic. The more you learn about backyard birds, the more you realize that your yard isn't just a place where wildlife passes through. It's a place where lives unfold. A place of trust, memory, shelter, and survival. So before you go, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever noticed a bird returning to the exact same spot in your yard day after day, and wondered what it was doing when you could no longer see it? Tell me about that moment in the comments. You never know, your observation might reveal another hidden piece of the nighttime lives of our backyard birds.